Today we're speaking with Professor Julia Adler-Milstein of the University of Michigan, and we are going to be speaking about health information and communication technologies and how they can be used to improve the safety and quality and efficiency of healthcare. Julia, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
So before we launch into talking about what these technologies are and how they can be used, what got you interested in working on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a techie person at all, but really what intrigued me was the fact that once you have information and information technology tools in place, it enables you to understand what you're doing and improve the performance of the healthcare system in a way that you couldn't do without the data and underlying technologies.
So you see this as a tool?
Absolutely. It's clear that it is a tool and it can be used in a lot of different ways. And so we're just starting to get a handle on what that looks like and in which places these technologies really making a difference and in which ways it's not.
Got it. So what are these technologies? I mean, when people say health information technology or information and communication technology, I'm guessing people conjure up lots of different things in their heads. How do you think about it? What are these things?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it really, I think it's a huge range of technologies. You know, there's several different dimensions to think about. On the one hand, who's using the technology? Are we talking about technologies that are being used by patients to manage their own health, or are we talking about technologies that are used by doctors and hospitals to manage care? And then I think you also brought up this idea of, are we talking about sort of what's thought of as typical information technology, and this could be electronic health records or, or other sort of devices, or are we talking about communications technologies? And again, there's a wide range.
So let's get concrete on a few of these things. Yeah. So you mentioned electronic health records. Those are presumably technologies that are going to be used by providers, doctors, nurses, hospitals. Technologies that individuals use, patients use. What are we thinking about? Things like personal health records?
Yeah, personal health records are probably the most well-known, and increasingly that's moving into devices that patients have, smartphones and other cell phones that can be used to deliver health information and health interventions.
Great. So sort of mobile-based technologies. Yeah. And then another area you mentioned was around communication. So things like, what are we talking about? Telemedicine, telehealth?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's where some people would lump that in with health information and communication technologies, and some people would say, oh, that's a whole different beast. And so, but yeah, I very much think of it as part of a whole suite of bringing technology tools to healthcare.
Great. So we're going to start off the discussion on provider-focused technologies. Let's talk about electronic health records, for instance. What is an electronic health record? Is this like, I am a doctor, I'm sitting in an office, and I have a computer? Do I have an electronic health record?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's not clear if you do or not, because when people think about electronic health records, they often think, well, it's my old paper record that's now just in electronic form. But that's actually not really what we mean when we say electronic health record. We really think about it's both the information about you and your health history, but then it's also a set of tools that sit on top of that information.
So what you're saying is it's both information, electronic information, but not just that, right. It's also tools on top of that to help me provide better care. So how do I know if I have some information that's electronic, I have some tools, how do I know if I have an electronic health record or not?
Sure. So I think a good way to think about it is there are 4 types of tools that you would want to know that you have in place. The first would be clinical notes. So are you entering, as a physician or as a nurse, are you entering your notes about the patient encounter electronically? The second piece would be results and results management. If you want to look up the laboratory or radiology test about a patient, can you do that in your electronic system? The third would be some type of electronic ordering. So when you're placing the order for that laboratory or radiology test, are you doing that piece electronically? Yep. And then the fourth bucket would be decision support. So is there something that's sort of proactively alerting you, the physician, about care gaps that may have been missed or potential errors?
Got it. I want to spend a couple minutes talking about some of the other types of technologies that we have not yet gotten to. Personal health records. How common are these things, do we think? How commonly are they used in the US? What do we know about it globally? Anything you can comment on?
I think what we know now is that they're not in widespread use, even when they are available to patients. It's been really hard to sort of get patients to engage, the sort of average patient in managing their health and using these tools. And my hunch is that it's a combination of the fact that the tools aren't particularly terrific. There's a lot of improvement that could be made in the technologies themselves, but that also we haven't made managing your health exciting to patients. And so if you have your choice of checking Facebook or checking your personal health record, I mean, I think we all know what we'd pick. Denmark, for example, has a really widespread patient portal, and it has a lot of, when I look at it, functionalities that I think those are really terrific. I would love to have those functionalities available to me, you know, across the healthcare system, booking and ability to connect with other patients in online forums. But they've, you know, had challenges getting patients to really use it.
Got it. Telehealth, another sort of important topic. People have focused a lot on it as a tool for improving access, improving quality.
It's clear that there's sort of particular uses of telehealth that they account for the majority of that. And so this is, for example, things like teleradiology, being able to send images that can be read by radiologists off-site. And you know, increasingly we're seeing the rise in what are known as eICUs. So this is where patients are in an ICU at a given hospital, but it may be a smaller hospital. And so it just doesn't make sense for them to have a full-time intensive care physician staffing that hospital. So what they do is they rely on telemedicine to basically share information about those patients with ICU physicians who are sitting somewhere else in the country or potentially the world who can care for those patients remotely.
I want to cover one more, which is health information exchange. You know, when I'm practicing in the hospital, the sheer number of times I see a patient who is transferred from another institution, and now they're coming in and I'm worried that there's some sort of relationship with what they have now to the surgery they had last year, and I can never get the information. It's incredibly frustrating. And even when our system has an electronic record, the hospital where they got the other care has an electronic health record. What we end up doing is literally printing things out and faxing it over. So what's up with that? What's going on in terms of trying to fix that in America? What do we know about it in other places?
Yes, so it's interesting because there's also often an assumption that when you say electronic health records that it comes with that connectivity piece, that if I have an electronic health record and you have an electronic health record, we will somehow have access to the same information, and that's just not the case. You know, in this country we've had to develop and pursue a whole separate strategy for figuring out how do we get information to flow between electronic health record systems.
What's really interesting about healthcare, we spend all this money on health, and yet there's so little information that's available to patients, right? You can go online and look up the quality of restaurants. You can go on Facebook and get all of this detailed information about your family and your friends. Seems like none of that is available in healthcare. Why is that so hard?
Yeah, I would say I think it's for two reasons. The first is that you know, there is sensitivity about health information, and that's led to a set of policies that are really meant to ensure that patient privacy is protected. And in a lot of ways, those policies are good, but they do limit access and the ability to share data. But I think the other thing is that when you're interpreting health information, there's a reason that we have physicians who are highly trained experts, right? It's not like I can see 3 stars on Yelp. You know, I know what that means. If I see a particular lab value, I as a patient may not know what that means. And so I think part of the hesitation to really make that data freely available is that it may not be correctly understood and interpreted, and that could have deleterious effects.
So there's some downsides to giving patients all that information, but at the end of the day, do you think it's worth it? I mean, should patients have access to their own information?
So yes, I think when you're talking about your own information, absolutely. And I think that we've actually gone a little bit too far with the privacy protections. I think there are people who actually wish their information could be more readily available, particularly by the people who care for them, and feel frustrated when it's not. So I think we need to give patients a lot more ability to sort of control and make their information available. I mean, when we're talking about information that gets posted to Facebook, I think that's a whole different ballgame. And I think there are reasons to think that we need to be really careful about how easy it is to access your health information for just sort of anyone that might be, you know, a friend on Facebook.
So your point is 2 things. One is there shouldn't be automatic posting of your lab values on Facebook. I think we can all agree that would not be the right mix of privacy and openness. But we have, at least in the US and in some other countries, maybe gone too far in making it difficult for people to access information. But we have all of this information now sitting in these computers, sitting on these servers, sitting on mobile phones in a lot of countries. What do we do with all of this? And can this stuff be a rich sort of playground for learning how to improve our healthcare system?
Absolutely. I think, and it's even beyond that. It's going to help us understand how to improve our healthcare delivery system, but it's going to help us understand how to improve health. I mean, we're going to be able to use this data to understand sort of populations of people, what kinds of treatments are most effective for them. Increasingly, as we think about capturing more data, on genomics, and I mean, it just explodes, and it really, again, I think it holds the potential for innovation on all sorts of dimensions, and I think that's what makes this so exciting.
Yeah, and let's take a couple of specific examples.
Sure.
So I'm a physician. I want to do a better job taking care of my patients with diabetes. How does the availability of all of this information help me?
Well, I mean, I think you forget that on paper records, even knowing how many diabetic patients you're seeing is it's virtually impossible, right? You'd have to go chart by chart, and that's just, you're not going to do that. So the first and powerful piece is that almost in an instant, you can say, how many diabetic patients am I caring for? And then you can say, how well am I doing in terms of quality measures for diabetic care? So just providing that piece of information is the first step, but it's very powerful.
Really helpful. What about beyond that?
Yeah, so then I think there are opportunities to say, how does your performance compare to others? And for the folks that are doing really well with their diabetic patients, what are they doing differently than what you're doing? But then I think it goes to the next level of, as the healthcare system, then how can systems step in and take better care of patients? And are there opportunities to more regularly engage patients in managing their care from home? And again, all of these technologies help support these new approaches to care.
So the data help you identify where the problems are, identify who's doing well, understand even why they're doing well. I've always found really striking, every time I've had my own care sort of profiled, every time I get a set of measures about, it's really interesting for me to see how I differ from colleagues. Like people who work down the hall, who I think are practicing in the same ways that I am, and then I realize they're doing very different things for the same kind of patients. And sometimes they're doing it better, and sometimes I'm doing it better, but it seems like there's an opportunity to learn. Do you think that these data can be useful for other kinds of research?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of people that are really excited about the ability to do something that's sort of equivalent to randomized control trials, but really sort of much more quickly, cheaply, and easily. And so you could imagine even basic things like being able to enroll patients in clinical trials, and then be able to have the data available really at the fingertips. I mean, it could just really change the way that we do clinical research.
So the power here is much more than just what it does for the individual physician. It's what it does for the whole system, but then all of the other spillovers. Another set of reasons why I think there's a lot of interest and these things are going to move forward.